All right, so I need to know my audience, so here's my first question. Who's in middle school? 6th, 7th grade, okay, all right. Who's in high school? Okay, half and half, all right. How many of you currently are part of a club or a sports team, or you do something at school that is either after school hours or something like that? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you spend time outside of school doing volunteering, either here at church or maybe for your parents or for friends of your parents, whatever? Okay. All right. So here's what we're going to talk about today. So what I do in my non-Sunday days is I work with students to help them to find activities and different things that they can do to get ready to either interview for a part-time job, which some of you may be doing already, okay, and to get ready to interview for college or interview to go into the military, whatever your choice might be outside of high school, okay? So we're going to talk today a little bit about some of the different things that you can be doing to prepare yourself for different activities that you might do once you graduate from high school. All right, so we're gonna do the take one, pass it around. You got that? All right. That's an easy one to remember, right? All of us had to do that since first grade. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I am violating the number one rule of talking to a group. You know what the number one rule is? Giving them the handouts in advance. Because what do you all want to do right now? You want to start turning the pages. I know you do. Okay, so resist the temptation to turn the pages for a minute. Okay? Now you can turn the page. All right. Okay. So I love to tell groups the difference between how you should answer questions in interviews and how you shouldn't. I'm going to tell you guys the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Is there anybody who's never heard that story? Okay, here we go. Here's Little Red Riding Hood's story. There was this little girl. She wore a red hood, and she was going to Grandma's house, and she showed up and opened Grandma's door, and guess what? Grandma was gone. There was a wolf in the bed. That's the end of the story. So, anybody have any questions about that story? Where is Grandma? Question number one. Question number two, why was anyone letting their little daughter wander through the forest by herself? That's a little weird, right? That's not normal, right? Okay, so now I'm going to tell you Little Red Riding Hood in the way I want you to think about the activities that you do in school and the activities that you do in clubs. Listen to the difference. There was this girl named Little Red Riding Hood. She had a red hood that she wore all the time. She was about 9, 10 years old, and her grandmother had been sick for a long time. So her mom packed up a lunch and said, Little Red Riding Hood, you should go visit Grandma. She'd be thrilled to see you. She's feeling better now. Go ahead and go through the forest and go see Grandma. Well, Little Red Riding Hood is best friends with Hansel and Gretel, which is really lucky for her because she remembered to do the breadcrumb thing. You know the breadcrumb thing from Hansel and Gretel, right? So she could find her way back. So she gets to Grandma's cabin, opens the door, and there's a wolf in the bed. Little Red Riding Hood screams, oh my goodness, Grandma, what happened to my grandma? A hunter ran from behind the cabin, and he came in, and he saw that the wolf was there. He protected Little Red Riding Hood by taking care of the wolf and burying the wolf out back. They looked all around for Grandma. Grandma was hiding in the closet. She was perfectly fine. But she was so grateful that the hunter had saved Little Red Riding Hood that she invited him to stay and have the picnic lunch with them. Then he actually walked Little Red Riding Hood home safely. So they all lived happily ever after. Okay, so which story can you picture in your brain more? Story one or story two? Story two, okay? So if I tell you about that car wash, and I talk about how I did the scheduling, and I say that we had a car wash for ABC Club on my high school campus. And there were about 50 of us that I had to make sure were gonna be there on time and show up, and everybody had to have a job. Some people were washing the cars, some people were holding the signs, some people were actually showing up to just help coordinate the cars so we didn't have any accidents in the parking lot. Some people were in charge of bringing the sponges and the soap and the hoses. And I made sure we had people to do all those different parts. And because I put a schedule together and I followed up with everybody via email and text beforehand, everyone showed up on time, and guess what? We raised $200. Okay? So as you're joining clubs, I want you to think about the stories that you can tell from your experiences in the clubs. And that's going to help you create your personal portfolio. If you do a schedule for a car wash, take that printout of that schedule, put it in a file. I call it an attaboy or an attagirl file, okay? It's a great thing to look at when you've had a really rough day at school or rough week and you've had lots of tests and you're just like, oh, I'm exhausted, I can't do anymore. Go pull your attagirl or attaboy file out and remember all the really cool things you've gotten to do, okay? All right, go ahead and turn to the next page, page 2. So let's talk about other activities you can do outside of clubs. You can participate here at church, right? I bet there's some volunteering activities you can do through church. Yes, yes. Teacher Jackie's like, yes, there are, okay?
Romina's saying yes.
Yes.
Big time.
Yes. So get involved in the volunteering that you can do through church. It's a great opportunity that you all have. You probably don't think about it as often as you should. But if I'm interviewing you and I'm talking to you about what things you want to do in your next post-graduation from high school or post-middle school graduation life, being able to tell me about the things you've done at church that have helped other people is really valuable. We want to hire people who want to help other people. Doesn't matter what job I'm hiring for, okay? So keep track of those things, write them down, all right? You can volunteer at places outside of church, obviously, and some of you said that you do volunteer, which is great. Help someone in a class. Who's really good at math in here? Okay. Do you help your friends? There you go. Okay. So my son helped his friends at math all through high school. All through high school. And he wasn't like a tutor, you know, he didn't get paid or anything. He just helped his friends. But guess what? When he would talk to colleges about things that he did to help other people, he always brought up helping his friends. And it doesn't matter if you're good at math or history or art or you're really good at writing or whatever you're good at. Help your friends in your classes and think about the things that you're doing to help them and just jot it down. Put it in your attagirl or your attaboy file, okay? So you have a record of it. And then getting a part-time job, obviously that's always valuable. If you aren't old enough to work yet, you might help your parents with things that they do around the house, or you might help their friends with things that they do in terms of businesses. So keep track of those things, all right? So very importantly, when should you start to do all these things? Look for clubs, volunteer, get involved. Yesterday is the right answer, okay? But I'm gonna give you a pass. Tomorrow. Okay? Tomorrow's when you need to start. So my homework for you all, we're going to do a little activity now, but my homework for you is I want you to go home today, go on your school website, see what clubs are there, see what things outside of basketball. You two are involved in basketball. I know that takes a lot of time. Playing a sport is really time consuming. So maybe you don't have time right now to join another club, but maybe you do, and maybe there's a club on campus you didn't even know existed. Or maybe you have a great idea for starting one. Jot those ideas down, plan out each year of high school what you want to do to join something, get involved, learn new skills, challenge yourselves. Because if you challenge yourselves now, then when you're interviewing for that post-high school job or for that 2-year college or that 4-year college or that military experience or whatever you're going to go do, if you challenge yourself now to learn new skills and build the skills you have already, you're going to feel so much more confident going into that interview, I promise you. Instead of telling that really bad version of Little Red Riding Hood, you're going to tell the really great version of Little Red Riding Hood. because you're gonna have some stories to talk about yourself, okay? Yes?
Can you tell them exactly what your job is and the title so that they know?
Certainly. So I am the president of my own company, Successful Impressions. The company's existed since 1991, and we basically were formed out of kind of what I just was explaining to you all, because I had another full-time job where I was recruiting on college campuses in Northern California, and I would go to career fairs, and I would go and meet with college students, and I'd review resumes, and I'd interview them. And 3 of the career services directors at these various campuses in Northern California said, "Stacy, why aren't you hiring any of our students?" I'm like, "Because they're not really good at interviewing. It's really sad. Not your fault, but they're not really good at this thing." And so they asked me to help write a career fair manual for them for the 3 different campuses. And so I did that and kind of formed my company out of necessity. So I've been helping college students ever since then, as well as working professionals as well. So.
Stacy, I have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you so much for coming today. Once this recording goes on our website, I think everybody would enjoy it, would love it. It's, I think everybody had fun. I wanted to know, especially with college students, have you seen a resume that's really stood out, and what was it about that resume that kind of caught your attention?
Great question. So there are 4 big things that I look for on a resume. One is that it's easy for me to read. So when you write your resume, get out of your own head and think about the reader, okay? So just like in school, when you do a writing project, you've got to think about your teacher who's reading it, right? Think about me, the employer, how I'm going to view it, all right? So you want to make sure that the font is larger than a 10-point everywhere around it. Don't misspell words. Back in the day, Dr. Ramina and I had to use a piece of paper and this thing called a typewriter. You guys you're spoiled. You get to do spell check, okay? We didn't have that back in the day. So use spell check. Make sure that your resume is an appropriate example of the skills you're bringing to the table. So remember all those verbs I was reading you for these skills? Producing, editing, writing, collaborating, right? Create bullet points that start with those verbs. Okay, your resume shouldn't say, "I worked on a project." It should say, "Collaborated with a team of 5 students to earn $50 at a car wash." Okay, so you hear the difference? So if I'm reading a resume that really jumps out, it's going to have numerical values. So how many people did you work with? How much money did you raise? It was a 6-month project. It was a 2-week project. Whatever it may be. So numbers are really important, and then being able to use those verbs is really important. And then when you've gone above and beyond, if you can speak another language, if you can do something on the computer that maybe your friends can't do, maybe you're really awesome at Photoshop and you want to do graphic design, put it on your resume. If you've done really well in school with your grades, make sure your GPAs are on there. If you've gotten scholarships or honors like Student of the Month, any clubs you're involved in, volunteering at church, all of that comes together to help me, from just a piece of paper, be attracted to want to talk to you. So that's the difference.
Does anybody else have a question? Because I have a lot of questions, so I want to make sure you get to ask them first. So we have, for their class, Jackie's class, we usually have a yearly essay competition.
Oh, wonderful.
Is that something that they can kind of expand on?
Yes, so what is the subject of the essay?
Well, we have picked different topics. Last year, the topic was, what makes you Assyrian?
Fabulous, fabulous. So let me tell you where that would be valuable, like invaluable. My son is, and Dr. Ramina knows a lot about my son. My son is at UCLA. He just started in fall. And to go to UCLA was very competitive this year. And so he applied to about 15 different colleges, and every single college he had to write a personal statement. And he had to write sort of who he is and why he wants to study what he wants to study. Well, literally yesterday, he's home for spring break, he sat right next to me on the couch and said, Mom, I'm filling out this application for this scholarship for next year. Guess what they want me to do? Personal statement. So I said, pull out the ones that you wrote for getting into college. That essay would be fabulous for you all to have as a tool to be able to say, I have to write a 300-word personal statement, or I have to write a 150-word personal statement. He had to write a 600 and a 450 yesterday. So we were working together to kind of trim it down or whatever. Your essays that you're doing here at church could definitely be used as kind of the core of how you express whatever you want to go do, whether it's a personal statement for the military or for college or for a job. So, very valuable.
Very good. Any questions? So, I forgot, do any of you do any clubs? I know some of you were in basketball and
Soccer, good.
So if they do, like if they volunteer at church, I know a lot of the schools don't count church volunteering at church as a credit point.
Yes.
That's different.
Yes.
They should still try and volunteer.
Yes, you should still try and volunteer, and there are lots of volunteer organizations here in Phoenix, which is great, and on the west side of town. So just keep track of it. That's the biggest thing. You just need to keep notes of what you've done so that when you build your resume, you can put volunteering experience, and you can put Sojourner Center or Andre House or Habitat for Humanity or St. Peter's Church, whatever it may be. Okay, so just keep track of it so that you can build your resume off of that. Okay. And what's your homework? Let's see if everybody was listening. What's your homework today after church?
Look for a club.
Look for a club. Go on your school website. If you're not already involved in a club, look for a club. If you're already in a club, but you kind of just, I don't remember, I'm checking the box. I'm gonna go to the meeting, I'm just gonna kind of sit in the back, and hopefully nobody's gonna ask me to do anything, because I really don't wanna do anything. Okay, here's your challenge. Sign up to do something. You can do it with other club mates, okay? But sign up to do something. Run a project, help run a project, be on a committee, do something. Challenge yourself to do something new, okay? That's your homework. I'm gonna check back with Dr. Romina and Jackie to see if you guys have done your homework. Okay, we're gonna give you about 3 weeks for this homework assignment, okay? Because school's gonna be out in about 5, okay? So I'm gonna give you about 3, all right? Is that fair? Is that fair? Yes? Okay, all right. Thank you guys, it was nice to meet you all.
Stacey,
Best of luck.
thank you so much,
Best of luck.
everybody.
Thank you.
And before Stacey leaves, again, we want to thank you so much on behalf of the church and the
Thank you
school.
so much.
And I hope everybody enjoys this program, and in a few weeks it's going to be on our website, St. Peter's Assyrian Academy.com. Gosh, I forgot that. And successfulimpressions.com.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a good rest of your Sunday. Don't forget your assignment.